Hi, I'm Natalie, and you are watching She Takes on the World TV, your weekly dose of soaring inspiration and practical advice for your business and your life. And today I'm going to be talking to you about firing someone, something that really sucks. When I was a kid, I really had an interest in my dad's job as a manager and leader at the company that he works for. Now, with so many people working under him, it's inevitable that he has to fire people once in a while. And I always thought that was the absolute worst part of his job. I always said, I hope I never ever have to do that. But as an entrepreneur, it's inevitable that eventually you're going to have to fire someone, or you already have. So when I got an email from Lanisha in London explaining that she's working with a really lovely person who just isn't cutting it as a virtual employee, I knew it was a topic that we had to cover on She Takes on the World TV. Now, I'll start by saying that I am going to focus today on firing a contractor or a virtual employee. If you have employees on payroll, whether they're full-time or part-time, you should really talk to a lawyer about how to fire somebody legally, because there is paperwork and documentation that you'll need to fill out, and you'll need to have solid evidence of their lack of performance and things like that. So most of our viewers have virtual team members or work with contractors, and that's why I'm going to focus on that today. So let's look at Lanisha's question that she wrote me. Lanisha writes, Natalie, I really value your advice and expertise, and I need help. Like you, I work with a virtual team and contractors to support the growth of my business. I've been working with a business development manager who is sweet as apple pie, but she's just not bringing in the results that I was expecting. I think I'm going to have to fire her, but I don't know how to do it or even where to start. Please help. So this has happened to me a few times, like I mentioned, and it's not easy. Now I want to start by asking you one question. Have you, as a manager or leader, invested the proper amount of time into training this person? I often find that entrepreneurs will hire virtual team members with no clear direction. And it's really important that you would do the same as if you were hiring a full-time employee, providing things like video tutorials, very clear instructions on what you expect, and having regular phone calls and meetings with that person where you're laying out expectations and you're collaborating on setting goals together so that the person that you're working with knows exactly what they're doing and what is expected of them. I did some consulting with a company that went through a 4-week process of training new employees, and this was an entirely virtual team. They did a lot of video tutorials, they had a lot of meetings with the person, and the person got to meet other virtual employees in the company as well as the executive leadership team. I think this is a really great idea. Now, you don't have to spend 4 weeks on the training, but that kind of format and introduction to your team and your business is invaluable. And you're really giving the person who you're working with an opportunity to shine and exceed your expectations. Now, if you've done all that and this person still isn't meeting your expectations, they aren't getting stuff done on time, or their communication is super poor, I 100% support you in firing that person. If you are going to reach your goals, you need a strong team behind you that has your back. And you probably don't have money to waste on people who aren't pulling their weight. Now, little side note about money. I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs who are paying people $5 an hour that they're finding on platforms like Elance, and you cannot expect someone to be a superstar when you're only paying them $5 an hour. So just a little side note that I wanted to mention. Okay, on to the part where you've got to let somebody go. First, take a look at the contract that you have with the person and make sure that you're respecting all contractual obligations that you have. In my contracts, I always make sure that I have the right to terminate the contract at any time. Of course, paying people for the work that they've completed at that point, whether or not it was work that was done to your expectation, you still need to pay them for it. I recommend that you try to jump on a call or on Skype with the person, especially if it's someone who you have regular contact with. An email should be a secondary resort. Now, when you have to actually break the news, you don't want to make any small talk first to make it more comfortable for yourself. Because guess what? It's just not going to be comfortable. It's a very uncomfortable situation to fire someone. You can start with this. Hi, I set up this call today because our working relationship is just not working out the way I expected it to. Then, tell them how their performance isn't cutting it or what deadlines they have not been making without getting into details because you want to keep it short and sweet. Tell them if their termination is effective immediately or whether there are outstanding things that should be delivered first. Then you can end with, "Thank you, but don't apologize for what you're doing even if you do feel bad or guilty about it. Write how you feel in a journal or meditate and surrender those feelings of guilt so that you don't hold on to any of that negative energy." Then it's time for you to find a replacement and someone who will do a much better job and meet your expectations. Now, this is all on you. You've got to have the Skype calls with the person, make sure that you have chemistry with that person, and check references. I can't stress that enough to actually check the references of the person that you're going to be working with. And if they show you a portfolio, go into it and look at some of the things that they've done with other people and then follow up with those people on your own to see what they thought about working with that person. Whenever I've had to fire someone, I always consider it to be my own fault because it's usually because I didn't spend enough time at the beginning of the hiring process or I ignored a gut feeling that maybe there was something not right there, but I hired the person anyways. So usually it has ultimately been my fault. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to fire someone and how'd you do it? And how did you get over those guilty feelings that you have afterwards? If you like this episode of She Takes on the World TV, we would love for you to share it. And of course, come on over to shetakesontheworld.com and subscribe for weekly updates and free resources that we only give to our weekly subscribers. I'll see you next time on She Takes on the World TV. And at one of my events, there was a woman who was observing all this hugging taking place. And she came up to me and she said, I think hugging is really unprofessional. And I was like, what? Unprofessional? Hugging?